stories making headlines this hour. In a move that could increase political pressure on Japan, the U.S. House of Representatives includes the issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Asian women to a spending bill for 2014. South Korea vows to retaliate against North Korean military aggression, while Pyongyang says it will calm down and resume family reunions if Seoul and Washington halt their annual military drills. And plus, the leaders of Korea and India agreed to upgrade their free trade pact as early as possible and take necessary measures to nurture a favorable business environment for investors in both countries. With these stories and more, next on Primetime News. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Thursday, January 16th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin in New Delhi, where President Park Geun-hye held a bilateral summit with her Indian counterpart Manmohan Singh on this Thursday.
The two leaders agreed to upgrade their free trade pact as early as possible and take necessary measures to nurture a favorable business environment for investors in both countries. Our presidential office correspondent Eoh Jin-joo, who is traveling with the president, sends us this report.
President Park's visit to India aims at laying the path for Korean firms to more easily enter the world's second-largest market by population. One of the most notable accomplishments of the summit talks between President Park and Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on Thursday was the two leaders deciding to quickly upgrade the Korea-India Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA, so that it covers not only goods but also investments and services. The two countries will be holding ministerial-level talks on the matter in March. Both leaders also agreed to revise the tax treaty between the two nations to reduce the tax burden on Korean and Indian companies operating in each other's countries and to prevent double taxation. President Park has also sought an expansion in financial support for Korean firms willing to take part in infrastructure projects in India, part of its 5-year development plan, with MOUs having been signed between Korea's Exim Bank and Indian financial institutions. POSCO-style project to build a steel mill in the Indian state of Odisha looks like it's finally back on track, with President Park securing promises from the Indian government to resolve the obstacles that have been blocking progress for roughly 9 years now. The Korean steel giant was granted an environmental clearance for the 2,700 acres of land required for the project and also secured a promise from the Odisha state government to grant POSCO a prospecting license for an iron ore mine some 300 kilometers from the steel mill. On Friday, President Park will attend events that are focused on cooperation in the sector of the creative economy and meet with Indian business leaders to call for further investment in Korea. Eoh Jin-joo, Arirang News, New Delhi.
And we move on to two starkly different messages out of Pyongyang in as many days.
On Wednesday, the regime threatened to start a nuclear war on the Korean peninsula, but on this Thursday, it proposed easing inter-Korean tensions, starting with the upcoming Lunar New Year holiday. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Instead of issuing yet another blanket threat against joint South Korea-U.S. military drills, Pyongyang chose a different tack on Thursday. They proposed that both Koreas stop any actions that could stoke tensions on the peninsula, starting January 30th. North Korea's National Defense Commission made a proposal through the Korean Central News Agency on Thursday. The statement said that both Koreas should begin reducing tensions, starting with the Lunar New Year holiday, especially surrounding 5 border islands in the West Sea. The commission also said it would be open to holding reunions for families separated during the Korean War and resolving other matters of contention, if, and only if, South Korea cancels joint military exercises with the United States that are scheduled to begin late next month. Thursday's appeal stands in stark contrast to comments out of Pyongyang on Wednesday, when the regime threatened to attack the South if the Joint Key Resolve Full Eagle drills begin.
Inter-Korean ties will plunge into a deadlock, and an unimaginable holocaust and disaster will follow should South Korea and the United States go ahead with their nuclear war drills and military provocations.
Seoul answered with his own promise on Thursday.
We will sternly retaliate against North Korea if the North carries out military provocations.
There's yet to be a response from Seoul over Pyongyang's latest proposal. But speaking to reporters on Thursday, Defense Ministry spokesman Kim Min-seok said the annual South Korea-U.S. drills will go on as planned between late February and April. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
South Korea is set to launch a task force to boost economic cooperation with North Korea and Russia as part of President Park's Eurasian Initiative policy.
The Seoul's foreign ministry says the task force will launch as soon as February, with about 5 government officials reviewing various joint economic projects among the 3 nations, including construction of railways, roads, and pipelines that could eventually run through the 2 Koreas and Russia. It added the 3-way cooperation could help encourage the reclusive North to open up and eventually improve inter-Korean relations.
The issue of South Korea's missile defense capability took center stage on Wednesday at the National Assembly, with the chair of the Parliamentary Defense Committee warning that our current capabilities are not enough to defend against North Korea's missiles.
For more on how Korea's missile defense system stands and what can be done to improve it, we bring in Dr. Park Geun-hye, professor of politics at Kookmin University. Thank you for joining us.
So, Professor, yesterday we heard from a parliamentary member that if North Korea were to fire a missile, it would reach South Korea in 11.5 minutes or under 11.5 minutes. Is that enough for Seoul to respond?
Yeah, the important thing is not the time. As far as time concerned, there are many North Korean missiles which can hit South Korea in less than 3 or 4 minutes. The important thing here is the distance and altitude. Rodong missile, which was the subject of the analysis, usually located in the northern part of North Korea. That means that we cannot detect the firing of that missile, and we cannot intercept that missile because it is very remote. And the second one is the altitude. If North Korean missiles fly to the higher altitude, we do not have the surveillance systems which can reach the higher altitude, and also we do not have the interceptor missiles.
But then what options do South Korea have right now, and what would be the shortfall of Korea's missile defense capability?
So that's the problem. So we need to build the missile defense systems, even though it may cost much. And one of the big obstacles on that missile defense system is misunderstanding of our people. Our people believes that if we build missile defense systems, it could be part of U.S. missile defense system. But it's not true. U.S. missile defense system may not need our interceptor missiles. We need to make a close cooperation with the United States and even Japan in order to destroy the flying and attacking North Korean missiles in the air.
So South Korean Defense Minister Kim Kwon-jin expressed confidence in our current preemptive missile destruction system, or the so-called kill chain. Do you think that we should be as confident as he is?
If we succeed to purchase and buy all the necessary weapon systems the defense minister is planning, I think we have some considerable capabilities against any kind of missiles. But it would take, I believe, more than 10 years. And until that, we do not have any reliable defense capabilities. That's the problem. That's why we think highly of the alliance with the United States.
Well, amidst of all this, North Korea has again upped its ante against South Korea, warning of an unimaginable holocaust if Seoul and Washington are to carry out its annual military exercise. Now, should we expect any provocations involving missiles from the north?
We are fully prepared for that, and North Korea would know. If North Korea is determined to provoke serious damage to South Korea, it will seek very creative and unexpected ways. And missile or the long-range artillery can be one of the good methods for North Korea to guarantee the 100% success, because we do not have any reliable missile defense systems, and it is very, very difficult, almost impossible to hit the flying, the artilleries. So it is very probable, I think.
All right, Professor Park, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features
restrictions is on the rise.
closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature, circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
The United States, the latest report. Less than
Unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
came on the news.
We're trying to cover up the South. In a landmark step that could increase political pressure on Japan, the U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bill addressing the issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement, marking the first time the matter has been included in U.S. legislature. Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
U.S. lawmakers are formally calling on their government to pay more attention to the so-called comfort women, or women forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during the Second World War. In a document attached to a spending bill for 2014, the U.S. House of Representatives makes note of a 2007 resolution on the comfort women issue and urges the Secretary of State to encourage the government of Japan to address the issues raised in the resolution. The 2007 resolution calls on the Japanese government to issue an official apology for its wartime sexual enslavement of women. An estimated 200,000 females, mostly Korean, were used as sex slaves by the Japanese army in the early 20th century, and many are still waiting for an apology from Tokyo, although time is running out for the aging victims. The bill passed on Wednesday is not legally binding, but is highly symbolic of Washington's efforts to address the matter. It marks the first time the comfort women issue has been included in U.S. legislation and is sure to ramp up pressure on the Japanese government. Korea's foreign ministry welcomed the bill and reiterated its calls on the Japanese government to apologize for its wartime crimes.
The Japanese government must humbly admit the universal crime of violating women's human rights that were committed during its imperial period and resolve the issue. I once again strongly urge the Japanese government to do so.
Although the bill still requires Senate approval and a signature from President Barack Obama, Seoul's foreign ministry said that the bill is a sign that the comfort women matter is no longer just a regional issue, but a global one. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
The Korean banks plan to increase lending to small and mid-sized firms this year as the economic recovery gains pace. The Financial Services Commission said Thursday that lending to smaller businesses would rise by $33 billion this year, up 27% from last year. The financial watchdog cited a more positive outlook for the Korean economy as a primary reason for the uptick in loans, as more firms will seek financial assistance for investments on the back of rising demand. The bank's move is also in line with President Park Geun-hye's drive to protect the financially vulnerable and expand support for smaller firms. In the fourth of our five-part series on Korea's industrial competitiveness, we look into the country's world-leading shipbuilding industry that has been on a wild and rather unpredictable ride in recent years. Song Ji-sun tells us through, though, that the future is looking much rosier despite growing competition from China. Here's what to expect from the industry in 2014.
The global shipbuilding industry is recovering from a long slump, and last year, Korea's major shipbuilders won more orders than they targeted. The big three, Samsung, Hyundai Heavy Industries, and Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, logged a combined total of $53 billion in orders, a 7-year high. When measured in terms of gross tonnage, the orders are nearly double from the previous year. Three Northeast Asian nations of China, Korea, and Japan make up almost 90% of the world ship orders won, and China overtook Korea to become number 1 in 2007, taking advantage of massive ship orders placed by local ship operators and lower production costs. Korean shipbuilders now focus more on complex and expensive vessels, such as LNG carriers and drill ships, as they can no longer compete with their Chinese rivals in pricing. And the new year looks brighter for Korea's shipbuilders, since there are more offshore plant orders in the works.
What makes us busy these days are offshore plant orders that account for about half of total ship orders.
The LNG carrier orders are expected to rise this year, and the order of offshore plants are also continuously growing. We are anticipating robust growth at a similar level as last year.
Foreign firms are also flocking to Korea to learn from Korean shipbuilders. This corporation has moved its headquarters to Seoul district of Gangnam-gu to strengthen ties with Korea's leading shipbuilders.
Korea is at the center of the global offshore and marine industry, and that if we want to be number one, if we want to succeed as a global marine offshore business, we have to succeed in Korea first.
Industry analysts say Korean shipbuilders are now poised to benefit from a new global trend of requiring eco-friendly ships with better fuel efficiency and less emissions. 송지선, Arirang News.
China has called on the IMF to stick to a commitment to give emerging markets a greater say at the organization after the United States failed to authorize the funding needed to make the change. Son Jung-in has more on the efforts to shift the IMF's balance of power.
Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Hong Lei has called on International Monetary Fund member nations to implement a plan that would give emerging markets more power and representation within the organization. His remarks on Wednesday seem to target the U.S., which is the IMF's largest veto power, after its lawmakers Monday failed to agree on funding measures needed for the reforms to progress. The reforms were first approved by IMF member countries in 2010. The reform package seeks to double the fund's lending capacity to more than $730 billion and shift voting shares to emerging markets and underrepresented countries. The IMF had previously intended to put the reforms into effect before October 2012, but the U.S. Congress is apparently in no hurry to approve any changes. Conservative U.S. House Republicans oppose the plan, which will shift more power to countries such as China, India, and Brazil. They also see the reforms as tantamount to approving fresh funding in a tight budget environment. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde expressed her disappointment with the setback, but added that she's hopeful the U.S. administration will continue to work on securing the necessary legislative authorization for the changes. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
A group of ambitious young Korean students got some practice in the art of diplomacy at a Model United Nations conference this week, where they tackled various global challenges like pros. Kim Yong-gil was there to witness future leaders in action.
A Model United Nations conference was held in Seoul Thursday to discuss some of the world's most pressing issues: world hunger, access to education, and climate change. Each participant represents a country and puts their own agenda on the table for discussion. The World Federation of United Nations Associations has prepared this program to give young people the opportunity to explore global challenges.
And this youth forum really aims to give youth an opportunity to learn more, to get inspired, and to also acquire some skills that are necessary to meet those challenges.
5th to 12th grade students have gone through 1 week of training led by professionals from international organizations, NGOs, academia, and other relevant fields.
Through their participation in this program and in Model United Nations, students have learned about the United Nations and its work in sustainable development and achieving the end of poverty.
Ways to tackle world hunger and poverty was the most debated topic. The students agreed that extreme hunger and poverty affects one's access to education, health, and protection. They also drafted resolutions that would provide small loans to individuals living in poverty in order to help them become economically self-sufficient. As well as this, the students drafted initiatives to provide less developed countries with strategies to implement their own homegrown school feeding programs.
I represent the delegate of Mexico, and the educational environment in Mexico is really good. Through this youth forum program, I learned that our opportunity in Korea is so better than other developing countries.
The students said they were able to gain a greater understanding of how the UN works and the challenges world leaders face when approaching global issues.
Through this conference, these young people had the opportunity to convey their thoughts on how to deal with the world's most pressing issues. And who knows, maybe one of these students could follow in the footsteps of Korea's most well-known diplomat, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. 지명길, Arirang News.
Top-ranked golfer Park Geun-hye headlines for South Korea at a new global team tournament.
Stephen Che joins us in the Sports Center to shed some light on the event. Hello there.
Hey guys, the LPGA's International Crown will pit teams from 8 countries against one another, all to determine which is the best golfing nation in the world. And South Korea was announced as the top-seeded country thanks to Park and company, followed by the United States, Spain, Japan, Thailand, Sweden, Australia, and Taiwan. They were based on the world rankings of each nation's top 4 golfers after the CME Group title holders last November. Now the final field of 32 players will be determined during this year's, or the week of this year's Kraft Nabisco Championship, with the top 4 ranked golfers from each nation making up their respective teams. It'll open on July 21st. Now moving on to Major League Baseball, the LA Dodgers re-signed their ace 25-year-old Clayton Kershaw to an historic $215 million contract, locking him up for 7 years. The 2-time Cy Young winner becomes the first $200 million pitcher in Major League history. He'll earn more than $30 million a season. Meanwhile, Sunderland midfielder Ki Sung-young was named in the Premier League's Best 11 by UK-based football website. TeamTalk.com also included Liverpool striker Luis Suarez and Chelsea's Eden Hazard as well. They went on to say that the EPL's Best 11 could beat FIFA's World 11, which includes Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo on the pitch. They may have been fuming about the fact that no player from English football was named on FIFA's Team of the Year. Now leaving that there, let's get to Thursday's matches. Starting in the KBL, KT beat Samsung 90-62, but now it's the game of the night. The KCC Aegis and ET Land Elephants battled in Jeonju. Both teams are motivated to win, but it's ET Land with 5-point lead at the half. They extend their lead in the third before KCC surges to tie it up late in the fourth. But it's a pair of missed free throws by Tyler Wilkerson that tip it to ET Land, and they win 79-75. Now it's the V-League. Russian Cash hosted LIG in Ansan for the last match of round 3. The home team takes the first set easily 25-19 before LIG edges out the next 2 sets 25-24 and 25-22. Now Russian Cash make it up and take it in the fourth to force the tie-breaking set. And they take the fifth as well, 16-14, completing the comeback and going on to win 3-2. That does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Toxic fine dust from China has once again made its way to Korea.
For more, let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung.
Well, guys, it has been a hectic start of the year around the globe. More than 2 days of torrential rain in the southern Philippines has left at least 24 dead. And over in Beijing on Thursday, fine dust levels soared to more than 25 times the normal levels. Back here in the nation, it was a smoggy day with a pre-fine dust warning being issued in Seoul. In fact, currently Seoul and Suwon are seeing 3 times the normal levels of fine dust, and readings reached 226 micrograms on Pyeongnyang Island, which is about 5 times the normal level. So those of you with respiratory problems must take caution. Well, taking a look at the satellite map, we're at the edge of a high pressure system from the West Sea, which is why we're seeing cloudy skies across the map. Now, higher levels of fine dust are forecast for tomorrow morning, so tune in for future weather updates. Other than that, dry weather advisories are still in effect, so please continue to be aware of starting fires. Moving on to tomorrow's numbers, Seoul starts off the day at -3 degrees with a high of 5. Meanwhile, Daegu and Gwangju hits 7. Moving on to other regions, Jeju makes it to 7 degrees, while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang peak at 3 and -2 degrees respectively. Well, that's all I have for you this hour, and back to you guys.
Thanks, Bo-kyung. And that's a broadcast on this Thursday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hae in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.